Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining. We are very excited to be joined today by Margaret Brodie, CEO of Rubicon Organics. You'll be definitely familiar with her and Rubicon if you follow our holdings on the international side. Of course, also, if you've been on the Nooner before, you might have seen her, and we've been having a great time talking through what's going on the Canadian side, as well as what's going on with Rubicon, because there's been a lot of great developments there. Thanks for joining us, Margaret. Really appreciate it. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Vancouver. The plants are growing lovely. This one, of course, I'm not over here. I am not sitting next to, but we're ready to rock and roll this summer and get weed into hands of connoisseur consumers in Canada.
Love to hear it. Well, definitely very excited. I feel like a lot of the times on the Alpha Nooner, we talk about what's going on in the US because there's a lot of pending change on the US side of things, but definitely important not to overlook the Canadian side. So very glad to take some time to sit down with you to kind of get some insight into what's going on the Canadian side of the border. I will also say for anyone who's joining us, one, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. But two, don't get left out of the conversation. If you have any comments, questions, love for a particular Rubicon product that you want to shout it out, you're welcome to do that in the comments. We take the comments on every platform except for Instagram. So just a good reminder there. I think I see perfect. I see Stevie in the mix saying, hey, love it. See Jane. Great to see you guys. All right. Well, then I think we'll probably start getting in talking about what's updates on the company, but would love to start just really quickly with updates on you. How are you doing personally? We saw you last at Benzinga, which feels like 1,000 years ago now. How are you doing?
A lot has happened since Benzinga with descheduling. I mean, just a million things. Look, great. We're starting to see I'm happy because this morning the Bank of Canada announced the first interest rate drop of what we think will be many, up like an elevator, down like a staircase is what they say. And so our interest rate, our Bank of Canada set rate has gone from 5% to 4.75. We all know that is going to create good things for growth stocks and growth opportunities. So my day is looking bright. Also, a number of our team have variable rate mortgages. So yeah.
Weather and rates looking good. Love to see that. All right. Well, then what's going on? Can you give us sort of an update since we last talked on what's been going on with Rubicon Organics and just sort of high level? What's the temperature check?
We have been busy. Look, we saw the Canadian economy sort of the second half of last year into the first quarter really struggling, I would say. But we used that time to set some foundation, and Q1 delivered and continue to be the #1 premium position brand portfolio across all categories in Canada. So, and that it doesn't even include our vape launch, which we launched in Q2. So we're excited to grow our position and grow to be the leading premium brand house in Canada for cannabis. We have market share of 7.1% in premium flower and pre-rolls. And we are just going from strength to strength. We hold about 2% of the overall market in Canada, but you've got to remember there's large value players that are just pushing a lot of product through. We have gross profit on every product we sell, and we are using the power of our premium flower to expand into other categories. So we have about 31% of the topical market. We expect that to grow as new people come into the category. It's a fantastic product, our wildflower product. We have a meaningful 23% share of premium edibles. And in the month of March, that was for the first quarter. In the month of March, we had almost 31% share just that month alone. So you can see the momentum that we're growing with. And most excitedly, and our biggest sort of growth driver and what we're thrilled about is that we launched vape just last month. We announced it in our fourth quarter. We don't believe that you need to be first to something. A fast follower is always good, but being best top quality to something. So we have launched into the fastest growing category in Canada. It's where Gen Z is looking to consume. It is, it's much more convenient from instead of sitting down and grinding and rolling. We love those consumers. We love that experience. That's part of the ritual around cannabis. But vape is we believe a huge part of the future. And look, in California and the West Coast, we see vape being up to 30% of the market share. In Canada, it's only 16% now. So think about the growth that we're going to see in the next little while. And we just think it's going to go from strength to strength. So what we're doing is taking what we're known for, this beautiful flower and our premium quality flower, and taking it and popping it through the resin process and bringing a really high quality, flavor forward experience. We launched with our 2 best-selling cultivars and most loved, really, Comatose, and that does what it says it's going to do, and Blue Dream, which gives you a euphoric High, which was our first strain ever launched. Absolutely beautiful flower. And we're anticipating the reviews. I am madly awaiting more feedback in market, but we're live in BC. We've delivered in both Alberta and Ontario, and I believe it's tomorrow stores can start ordering in Ontario. So we're feeling pretty excited about 24. On top of all of that, it's a foundational year for our business. We're putting a big IT system in, which we need to, have, all the reasons, less reliance on key people and letting the people use their brains to do the things we want them to do rather than enter into spreadsheets. And then from there, we're doing a lot of work on our cultivation, looking to get better, and doing a lot of work on genetics and new genetics coming forward from us. We've got lots of new launches planned, and always want to be leading, don't want to be following.
That's true, but also meeting people in terms of what they want in terms of form factors, like vape. Again, you mentioned, very important. I wonder, how much does it matter that in Canada, outside of Quebec, the age to access cannabis is slightly lower than the US? Because I think, when I was growing up, you could buy tobacco at 18, and that was just what you could do in the US. And now it's pushed back to 21. And I think that's also true for cannabis. But I know in Canada, you can have it at a slightly younger age. You're still an adult, but how much does that matter for capturing that Gen Z component?
I think that's huge. There's an interesting line here. We're cannabis for adults. We're not marketing to kids. We're not marketing to teenagers. We actually just came out of a meeting having this conversation. We really believe that it's an adult choice. And there was a study that I was looking at yesterday from the University of Cambridge talking about how teens really can be impacted. There's a percentage of teens that really can be impacted with psychosis from consuming. So, in Canada, it's in most provinces, it's 19 plus. And I agree with that. And I think that's the right thing. But after that, your risks of any of that really goes down. But I think that market, 19, what we call youth, not teen, they're really consuming vape. They're really interested in it. They also have really moved away from alcohol. We're seeing that everywhere. And I think the alcohol companies really should be worried. I know every market is seeing that. California sober is probably what the adults say. The youth never went into alcohol in the same way. I know I've got kids, and they're getting to late teenagehood, and they are much less interested. They're not interested in consuming. They're not interested in alcohol. I've given them the speech about weed, so they understand as they get, when their brains finish developing. But also, let's get them the good stuff when the time is right, and let's make sure you enjoy it and understand what great looks like.
Yeah, I think we've talked about safer options in general, and I know there's been a move, kind of, at least in the US and in Canada, away from drinking, which, if you drink too much, there's definitely heavier consequences to consuming too much cannabis. But I think it's just important to note that I think the overall market a little bit is wider on the Canadian side, which is interesting. I know that's also technically true for alcohol.
Yeah, 20-year-olds are that convenience factor. I'm sorry about we've got a little feedback here. And the convenience factor, the vape, waking up the next day feeling so great and just being ready to go. I know my habits have changed. I know I've said this before, probably on this podcast, but it's incredible once you switch into weed, you just don't go back. It's fun. What we can do with our genetics and with our beautiful flavor forward profiles is create a fun experience, a sommelier-like experience. We've got fruity flavors. We just launched very flavor forward, fruity flavor. And you don't need to add some botanical terpene to make it a beautiful experience for people. And I think as consumers learn away from distillate and sort of the Everclear of the weed world and move towards the rosins and the resins where you get the flavors out of it and the full terpene rich experience, that's where Rubicon wins, and that's where the market's going. That's what people are going to learn. Look, there's always going to be people wanting to just get high for the cheapest price, in the same way that with alcohol, some people just want to have the highest alcohol content and get it down. But, we don't encourage that. We encourage people to enjoy the experience and the beauty of what we do and the full-bodied experience you're going to get out of that.
Yep, that's fantastic. Again, I think just as a market matures and as sort of a product line matures and develops, you're able to really customize what kind of experience you want to have, which is fantastic. Also, Stevie brings up a great point. Comatose sounds like it might help with insomnia potentially, maybe. If you have trouble sleeping, do you use it?
I have to admit, Comatose is one of the strains that it comes in at quite a high THC. I haven't actually tried it because the name scares me too much.
You got to be up and at
Because
it.
a lot of people get couch lock. It's a strong indica, and I'm nervous, especially with the power of the vape knocking my socks right off. But I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. And look, we are getting a lot more into our wildflower brand. A lot of seniors also really moving from understanding the topical and moving towards CBN and sleep, and looking for trusted products that are made well by good companies, people they can trust, that they can rely on every day for the same product. So between our hard-hitting vapes, and some of our strong, beautiful flower, we've got the adult connoisseur, somebody who loves that experience. And then we're also looking to appeal to the daily wellness consumer with our wildflower brand. So we think we're positioned in a good place as consumers shift along the learning curve of weed in the same way. I mean, I've been on a big journey, and I call it my journey of weed. I think a lot of people are going through that, and that's where, it all is going to come to quality. And all of the big companies, and I look down at a lot of the people that are competing more on where they have retailers. In Canada, we're really having to compete on quality and price, and we're competing in a really fierce market. So if you can win here, makes me excited for what we can do when we take our quality into other places.
That's fantastic. Could you really quickly, because I feel like I hear not a lot of people, but I hear a push for wanting premium, wanting sort of that best experience. How would you guys define sort of that premium approach? What makes something premium in sort of Rubicon's eyes?
Great question. Well, there's a couple of things. One, it's about experience, the quality of the flower input. So having a beautiful, not just high THC, but terpene rich experience, and the terpenes that you're understanding and going for, with beautiful bud, beautiful size of nugs, beautiful look. Bag appeal is always important, but experience and effect is often just right up there. Consumers start with thinking it's high THC and start with thinking it's bud size, and as they move along, they realize, oh, wait a minute, these terpenes are really impacting what's happening in my body. And that's the difference between a distillate and a rosin or a resin, which have those terpenes in them that give the body. I mean, people talk about the entourage effect with CBD and with small amounts of THC, etc. It's the same thing with terpenes. And I think we still are at mile 3 of learning about this plant and what it's going to do. I'm excited for the studies that are going to come out over the next 10 years in terms of what terpenes and what flavors, what's going to help with various things. And premium is when it gives you that full-bodied experience as well. It's not just, oh, this is high THC sitting in a bag and it looks pretty. It actually has to do what you want it to do. And the other thing that premium, a lot of people miss with premium and really in brand building, is consistency. So when somebody comes and buys one of our products, we want them to know if they're spending their hard-earned dollars, they're going to get a great experience and a great product every time. And in the Canadian experience, we saw very early days, a lot of people put weed in a jar and thought it would sell because it was weed in a jar or in a plastic bottle. Mm-hmm. Actually, every time you opened it, it was something different. Sometimes it was dust, sometimes it was moldy, sometimes it's about a great quality of product. And that also speaks to premium in this market.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Quality and consistency. Very well answered. Appreciate it. All right. Well, then seems like a very exciting year, very exciting 2024, even though we're halfway through, which is wild for Rubicon's side of things. But I would love to take some time to kind of expand out, talk a little bit about what's going on sort of the Canadian side from sort of an industry perspective. What's sort of your take on sort of the current Canadian side of things?
Well, I was at the Grow Up conference last week, and it was the first time that a lot of people commented this is the first time they felt optimism of the Canadian market. I think we're seeing a lot of companies that weren't going to make it have fallen out or are repurposed or have cleared the debts out, etc. A lot of Canadian companies that also were struggling to compete in the Canadian landscape have exported. So, I think that the stats are, I have them in front of me. In 2019, there was only 8 million exported. By 2021 or 2022 was 160 million. Last year, Canada exported over $220 million dollars of legal cannabis. Now, I suspect there is a legacy market that has another number, but I don't know what that number is. But a lot of companies are exporting because they don't have to deal with the excise issues, and they can sell overseas. But to us, we want to build brand that is consistency. And in Canada, we think the international markets are very interesting, a very interesting place to be, and there's some great pricing there. But you're not building a route to market that necessarily has long-term in it, unless you've got some sort of footprint there. We think that, for example, Australia, a great market right now, but they're building their own infrastructure and supply, and they're going to want to have their own homegrown industry. So what's that going to mean for Canadian companies in 3 and 5 years? So really, we're looking at, let's make sure we're owning our market and then going from there. But the international markets have been a boon for Canadian companies, and we support it. They're paving the way. We think it's fantastic. And I'm really pleased to see Canadian quality going out around the world. I'm very proud of that. I think there's there's an opportunity for us to be a world leader, and we should take it. And I have to admit, and many Canadians will give me the hook for this, but I'm glad that the US can't do it yet, because they're great at what you do. So we'll take the advantages we've got it, right? I'm sure people will be ired by that, but take the advantages we've got it, in particular for BC Bud, where I'm from. So British Columbia.
That makes sense. And I feel like you've had at least a little bit of time to kind of build that brand, build that market on the Canadian side before the US comes, because hopefully it does eventually come. Is there anything in particular that you guys are doing to kind of defend against, let's say hypothetically, we do get some progress, we hope, soon? Is there anything that you guys are like, let's get defensive and really defend what we've...
I think that comes to quality. I think what it means is, for us as a business, Rubicon, we're very focused on building intellectual property and systems. We joke that we're taking the science approach. We're not pure scientists. We're systems people. We're process. So what we want to do is learn from everything we do, trial, build manuals, build instructions, so that what we can be is 1 + 1 = 3. So when we take it on another facility, we can prove out that we've got a system, rather than, I think a lot of cultivation and processing is around individual knowledge that's being held, rather than systems that are being created. And that's something that we as a business are working very hard at. I think some others probably are as well, but that's what's going to take to recreate what you do in more than one place, because this is agriculture. We have to remember this is agriculture. And a lot of people forget that it's agriculture. And, look, when you go and look at a tomato farm, there's going to be all sorts of tomatoes, but only the good ones are going to get to the stores. And when you walk into your Whole Foods to buy it. So what's happening to the rest of the tomatoes? And I think that whole agricultural bent is going to move into cannabis, and we're going to be looking at systems, trials. What have we learned? Capturing that data. And that's something that we're focused on right now. I think, when we think about, the other thing I should mention is we think about the Canadian experience. We believe that we're starting to see the beginning of price stabilization. Last year, we saw a ton of price compression, and really a lot of it was people selling below cost, people selling their inventory at any cost just to turn into cash, to pay their bills, to survive. And you can't judge that when people have started businesses and they're in a tough spot. But I am hearing, and I can't say from whom, but some of the provinces are saying people suppliers are looking, LPs are looking to take price. That is a good thing. I think it's a challenging thing to do, to take price, and after you've dropped your price to try and get back in. But I think, have we seen the bottom? I guess we'll know, and time will tell. But I think the Canadian cannabis is in for some exciting times to come, and we may have seen the bottom of things. We're also seeing a lot of facilities that were built by non-cannabis people turning to legacy teams who are looking then to grow and sell to companies like ours that have the channels. And then the quality has to be there for us. But if you in the old legacy market, there were legacy growers, then there was brokers, and then there was retail, and they were 3 distinct places. If you think about Coca-Cola, they have bottling plants, and then they have their brand, they own the brand channel, and they're all different. So I think cannabis is going to move more towards a model like that in the next 5 to 10 years in Canada. But the quality has to be there, the genetics have to be there, and the systems have to be there to have it work. And I think we're just seeing the beginning of it.
Yep, that's fantastic. I know you mentioned it sort of being an agricultural effort in general, which I think is true, but also it's sort of a just general, like any business, you want that process, you want those procedures in place, like any business sort of needs those things as well. So I think that's important. For the price stabilization component, you were saying a lot we're trying to really just drop their price so they could get any cash coming back. Do you think that has dried up mostly because those businesses have just entirely fallen off? They've not been able to do it? What would you point to say that's changed?
I think a lot of businesses have turned off. We've seen a lot lot of CCAAs, which is a bankruptcy proceeding in Canada. I think people have also stripped and restructured their businesses down to make it work, or they're exporting. And I think export has been a huge savior to a lot of companies. I do worry that for a lot of small producers, if the taps get turned off and they don't have a differentiator, it takes a regulator's stroke of a pen on a checklist. It doesn't need a law necessarily to stop imports. And we've seen that there is currently a anti-dumping investigation occurring by the Israeli government against Canadian companies. They've asked for information. I don't know what's going to come of that. We're seeing Germany probably not going to turn on many facilities, but the Netherlands is right next door with large amounts of knowledge on agriculture. We've got lots of countries around the world turning on. Who knows what's going to happen? I think there's some bets being made. I think there's some very good ones, but they could be very great, well-executed or well-researched bets. And a new government comes in and things change. So TBD on what happens. I think that recurring revenue and consistency is extremely important in your home market to be able to build a business that can go abroad. And look, you gotta be able to win at home, right? I mean, compete where you live.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense. All right,
Yeah.
I'm seeing some good questions come in, so I'm gonna throw one up from Mark. Okay, Margaret, seems like if you're able to do a little bit of pricing, the leverage is huge given the current margins. Is that true? What do you think?
It would be true. I don't want to say too much about our pricing strategy on a public forum, Mark, but I appreciate the question. Look, we probably it takes a minute to adjust pricing in the Canadian environment because each province has different rules. So, for example, in Quebec, if you decide to take a price drop now, they may not accept it, and if they don't accept it, they could actually delist your product, and or if they do accept it, they'll just take the additional margin and leave the price on the shelf. So different markets operate differently. In BC, we've got a little bit more flexibility with price than we do in Ontario as well. So there's rules on how we can do that. I think I don't know if we'll be first to take price. I think our prices are fair for the quality that we're delivering. What you'll notice is we have not done major price drops. We've held ourselves in our categories. We believe that we have a super premium brand with Simply Bare Organic, a premium brand with 1964, which really is the engine of our business, and a fantastic brand targeting legacy consumers with legacy strains. And then our Wildflower brand, which actually does very well for us. We like to see lots of growth with that. But the prices have dropped so much in Canada that Homestead, that was originally our value brand, sometimes because premium is calculated on 20% of the average selling price. Sometimes Homestead was ticking up into the premium category when, from a brand positioning perspective, it wasn't there. So we probably white knuckled it a little bit more than others, but we believe that our brands are priced fairly for the quality. If the market started to move up and we could take advantage of some of the costs that we're fighting, we'd love to be able to do that. For us, it's about leverage on a fixed cost base. We have a fixed cost base. We've looked at contract manufacturing to grow our business rather than overextending ourselves on buying new facilities with our working capital. And I think it's all about product mix going forward. Do you have the right mix of products that are selling at the higher margin? We got that a little wrong in the first quarter. I'm not going to lie. We said that, but we've adjusted. We had launched a whole bunch of new products that were co-manufacturing, but we have taken some actions, and we believe we're back on the right track and looking to a solid 2024.
Yep. I think that's a constant plan, is constantly trying stuff out, correcting. I mean, that's just how you build a better business over time. So I think that's a common process for any type of company. If you're in tech, if you're in cannabis, anything else, it's
and make sure you're learning. Make sure you're learning. So don't make the same mistake more than once. And it's not always a mistake if it's a learning, but sometimes we also in this industry have to throw things against the wall and see what works. We have I won't give away all our secrets, but we do have a matrix of what we think things are going to be, whether they're an experiment, and how much resource we put behind them versus something that's a big bet or something that we just know is going to work. And that shows with the way we're using our resources and how we're putting funds behind it. I think you can tell that we think we're putting a big bet, but we believe it will be very good on vape. We firmly believe in the category. We're excited to play there. I believe we're coming out with a fantastic product in market. It's 100% full spectrum extract, FSE, which is known in the legacy market. And we're looking to take our share of that market. And it's a growing market. So, we want to be on shelf with the ones that we're line pricing with some of the best out there. And I believe a competitive shelf and a competitive marketplace will actually build the category better. And as I said to some of our competitors last week at Grow Up, we're here to build this category with you guys. So we're in the game, right? Let's face it head on and go out and tackle it.
That's fantastic. All right. Love the approach. Also, Todd's here. Hey, Todd, how are you doing? He's loving Maggie's farm. That's his fave.
Hi. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. He taught us toured our farm, and I have to tell you, our board was in town last week, and it was great because a little bunny was hopping by, and I was like, "Oh, there's the bunny!" And then we all looked up to make sure that there's a ton of bald eagles too. That a bald eagle wasn't going to come down and take the little bunny because we're always worried about
always
that.
Have an eye on risk. Always have an eye on risk. Always checking it out. So
but we've got some great things we're cooking up in the greenhouse right now, and some new strains that are going to be dropping. We have, I wish Todd was in Canada and Mac, I could get you our Fruit Loops. It is absolutely fantastic. We've got an LA Kush that's coming down. The plant looks incredible. I was in yesterday walking the site. I like to walk the site at least once a week, get in, see the plants, check that everything's working well, see how, everything from safety to CapEx and maintenance. But we believe that Canada is going to have a strong summer, and I brought my son to the farm with me, is what I see.
Cute. Love it.
But the plants are happy right now, and we're bullish on where we sit. I would say that we were more cautious last fall and in the first quarter because of where the economy was and what we were seeing in market. But it feels like it's stabilized. It feels like we're at the next step, and the industry is going to be in for growth.
Yep, that's fantastic. Love to see it. Also, you're getting a little compliment on the side of things too, as well.
The GG4 Gorilla Glue number 4 from Josh. I see popping up.
Yeah.
That is a strain that has been a challenge to grow, which is, I think, one of the reasons it's been hard to get it in market. But look, we love our genetics. We love being on the front foot of that. There's going to be more to come from us from genetics. We're investing in it on the R&D side. We'd like to bring out some homegrown genetics. And we've just had someone go down the coast. I can't tell you all our secrets to look at what's coming and, what are other people doing and what's out there. And we think we're positioned pretty well for the next 3 to 5 years in terms of being a leader, not a follower on genetics. And look, genetics are going to be a big part of the agriculture side as well. What grows well, what's resistant, what likes more light, what lives, that does great in living soil. Premium to us is why organic. It's because it gives the best expression of the plant. And we've got some great plants. I feel like I'm Dr. Evil here, thinking about the future of what we're going to do. Yeah, it's very exciting. And look, all of those genetics I see as we look over the next 5 years, they're going to go around the world, and there's going to be opportunities for us to take what we've got and show the world what Canada can do and what BC and Rubicon Organics can do.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm sure that's very exciting, I think, for customers on the customer side who are actually consuming the products. I'm sure that's also exciting kind of on the investor side. Can you talk through a little bit how you're talking to investors right now when you're explaining the opportunities in the Canadian market, especially with Rubicon as well, obviously?
Great question. I feel like I seeded that one to you on a platter. But look, with the drop in interest rates today, it couldn't have been time better to say Canadian small cap values are cheap. We all know that we've seen small caps disproportionately underperform large caps. In general, we're really a micro cap. If you look at us, we're trading at less than 1 times revenue. We're a profitable business. Canadian NASDAQ listed companies are trading, on an enterprise value from anywhere from on the low end 1 times to about 6 times. Our direct peers are trading at half to 0.7, and the US MSOs are kind of between 1.7 and 3.5 times. We're trading well on the bottom end of that. So I think there's opportunity for us to grow and opportunity for us to really over-index. Our recent Haywood report that covers us has us at about looking that we could be at a 1.5, and we're trading at 0.5 now. So I think there's a lot to go, but also we've got a lot of growth coming up with our vape launch. That's where we see the opportunity, and we're looking at how are we going to get the biomass to fuel that. And it all comes off the back of the strong premium cannabis and quality business, and doing what we do with systems, institutionalizing them, getting better every day, looking to really build that BC powerhouse. Of those in the US would not know about BC Bud in the way that we don't have necessarily the same reputation as California, but we're coming in close behind, and we're working really hard on that. So very proud of it as well.
Yeah, you should be. You're putting a lot of work into it, which makes sense. All right. Well, then anything else that people should be kind of aware of on the Canadian side? I know we talked last time sort of on the regulatory side about excise tax and everything like that. Any updates there that are worth hitting on?
I
Kind
think
of,
there's some interesting things that are going to come from government, and the question is timing. So, excise tax. Look, good companies don't need a reform in excise tax to compete. It would be great to have reform, but it's going to happen when it happens, and it could be a few years away. It could be 6 months. There is a fiscal update in the fall by the government. They have been clearly briefed on the state of the cannabis industry. Would that be wonderful for us? Of course, it would be wonderful for us, but we drive forward. I think what's interesting is what's going to happen from a regulatory perspective. Health Canada has just done a big regulatory review with several companies. We were involved in that, a study that was done looking how to reduce the burden in terms of we have a lot of red tape that we deal with because we're regulated like heart medicine as a rec product. The Ontario government has announced a $31 million task force to deal with cracking down against the legacy market in that province. That would be very meaningful to us. But also, there's something else that may happen, and the tobacco and vape flavorings is something that's really gone nuts in Canada as it has in the US in terms of the strawberry watermelon flavor of vape that you can pick up all over the place. And we see a huge rise in young people, both teen and youth, consuming. We believe that ban could be coming as soon as June 20th. The Canadian government, onto the tobacco side, and I'm leading to a point here, on the tobacco side, and they have taken it out of their forward regulatory guidance and said that they were going to act on it by the end of the spring of 2024. The spring technically ends June 20th. Will we have an announcement in the next 3 weeks? Maybe. What does that mean for Rubicon and for the industry? In cannabis, the Canadian cannabis industry has really created flavors in cannabis that didn't exist in the legacy market. So my experience, there is a real possibility that the Canadian government comes in and says flavors in Canadian cannabis will not be allowed. So what does that mean for all those categories in flavored vape that if you go online are wildly taken away, and infused pre-rolls? They really have run away with it. They are also what really targets has come from from the Heart and Stroke Foundation. He was on the youth file. If you go online, you can look at him and look at he is very focused on these types of issues. So it will be interesting to see in the next number of weeks and months if there'll be a change there. If there's a change there, companies like ours that produce a very flavor-forward cannabis experience that isn't adding flavors into it, I think would really win in that environment. I think there would be some losers, and it would be really tough for a lot of companies as well. So we shall see. I think there's a real possibility of that development, and I can tell you that in speaking to several of the CEOs for our provinces, they're concerned about the issue, and they're wondering what the government's going to do on it. But if it happens in vape for tobacco, I suspect it will be coming for cannabis as well.
okay. Yeah, that would track and make sense. And I do know, again, US and in Canada, there has been a big concern around vape and sort of very youth targeted flavors, like you're saying. So I would not be surprised. I feel like Canada, just because of its heritage, kind of with the Europe, more likely to regulate that stuff out faster. So
absolutely. And Canada likes to be leading, and the Liberal government in particular, on tobacco. So we could see a move here that could upend the industry, and we don't know if that's going to happen or not. Yeah, I'm seeing a question of sprayed on botanical terps. That's exactly what we're talking about. Look, as a premium business, that's not what our consumers want. They want the flavor forward, rich experience. It does draw a lot of consumer interest, and not just of youth. Let me be clear. A lot of adults are consuming it as well. But it will be interesting to see how this plays out, because I suspect it is coming, and it could be coming very soon. I don't know, but if I knew, I would be making different plans in terms of building our stock to be able to come in. But But I think that if you were solely in that business, I would be looking at alternatives right now.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense. Perfect. Also, I see that they are actively trying out the jet fuel gelato, which is great.
Oh, GG for it. Oh yeah. The jet fuel gelato, that is fantastic. But GG for, maybe get a friend in Ontario to send you some. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I will. And if you haven't tried the Fruit Loops, I would recommend it. But Comatose is doing really well in our greenhouse right now as well. It's a loved strain, and I would love everybody to, I think it's a different occasion, flower versus vape. Vape is that convenience and when you can. And the Blue Dream comes out absolutely beautifully. So yeah, I would encourage you to try that.
That makes sense. All right. Well, I feel like in the comments, we've seen people call out some of the things that they liked, which has been great. Before we close, what has been a favorite that you've tried lately? Or I know you're staying away from Comatose, but what's your pick of the month?
I'm gonna get slapped for saying this, but I smoke our Blue Dream, and that's pretty much all I smoke. I love the flavors and the smells in the greenhouse. We have something that's coming up. I don't know if I'm allowed to announce that it's I don't know. So the commercial team might get mad at me, but there's a pineapple sour that I was smelling yesterday that's in commercial production now, and it's pretty amazing. It starts off really sweet, like a lime mojito or Fruit Loops, and then it goes into that like not diesel, but it's got something sort of more gassy at the end. So it's going to be interesting to see how the sours do. Look, I think there's a lot to come, but vape, like let's get those into consumers' hands and show them what we can do without adding terps, without doing all this, without botanical terps, with true, beautiful cannabis. The quality of the input is what drives the quality of the output on vape.
That's good in, good out. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That sounds like definitely year of the vape is this year, which is great to see.
Absolutely. Well, and next year we're really going to see it in our results. So
that's awesome. Love to see it. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Margaret. Really, really appreciate it. It's always so much fun to have you on and kind of get a little bit more of a peek into what's going on the Canadian side. Because again, we focus a lot on the US, but don't forget and don't overlook the Canadian side of things, everyone who's out there. Thanks for all the questions as well from everyone. I think that's super fun. And for sharing what you are currently smoking or using or liking. That's always kind of fun too as well. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I would say, just watch this space. I think this is a moment where I think we've seen the lows. I could be wrong. We've said it before that it was the lows. We thought it was last summer, but it feels different this time. And I think with the economy turning in the way that it is, we're at the beginning of what's to come and what's next. And I'm feeling a lot more bullish. Oh, I see Jane writing there. Thanks, Jane. You can feel the energy and excitement in our team as well. And I think that really tells me when we walk into store and we feel that from people, it's all about the repurchase. So I'm going to be able to report back in August about how vape's going, because yes, you get the opportunity for people to try, but it's, do they buy the second time? That's what I want to see. Are they buying the second and third time? Then we know we've got a hit on our hands.
That is very exciting. All right. Well, can't wait to have you on again to talk through it. Very, very excited. Appreciated our time right now. And we'll catch you later. Thanks again.
Thanks very much.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at advisorshares.com.